Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Inside Guns with your host, me, the Yankee Marshal. Today, I want to talk about something that I have always found to be a bit odd. I want to talk about how I think there's a disconnect in our country about how both sides of the argument treat police officers, and how there's a hypocrisy in how both sides, the left and the right, treat police officers. It seems the people on the left are the ones that want you to be most dependent on police. They don't want you to get involved if you see something bad, or if someone's, breaking into your house, they want you to run away and let police deal with it. You should always call the police, don't be a vigilante, blah, blah, blah. But then they openly demonstrate against the police and talk about how police abuse their authority and blah, blah, blah. Whereas on the right, people fucking kneel down and lick the boots of police. They put those desecrations of the American flag on their cars and everything else, the thin blue line bullshit. And the police pretty much stand for everything that they are against. They don't want to depend on someone else to protect them. They believe in self-reliance. They believe in taking care of your own problems, protecting yourself, protecting your family. And the police will openly denigrate you for doing any of those things. I have had personal experience with police officers getting on people for defending their own selves. Like when they called 911, they said, I have a gun, and 911 tells them, put the gun away. Police are very much want you to be dependent on them, and yet the right deifies them. I don't understand this. It's hypocrisy on both sides. It's like they're awful and they abuse their authority and you shouldn't have a gun, just they should. They're trained and they're special and they can have them. And then on the other side, oh my God, they're so awesome. They're the best people in the world and we should lick their boots clean every day. But, they stand against us. They don't want us to do the things we most care about. Protect ourselves, defend ourselves, be responsible for ourselves, etc. They're part of the big government that's going to suppress you. I mean, if you think police are on your side, you're wrong. Look at what was going on before the attacks on the Capitol recently and how police were planning on dealing with people coming. Look at what happened during Katrina in 2005. The police are not on the side of gun owners, period. They will blatantly tell you it's not your job to protect yourself, blah, blah, blah. And if you do so, you're getting in our way, even though they'll admit it's not my job to protect you either. So I don't understand where they're coming from. But there's this weird disconnect on both sides about how they treat police and what they believe the police's role are in society. And I was actually discussing that during a live chat tonight. And someone asked me, but don't you really think that police are very important because they're trained and they have guns and blah, 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 and they know how to use them and they can be trusted. So if we have a problem with the police, we can trust. And I'm like, absolutely not. It's actually the opposite for me. And this is the whole point of my thing here that I want to talk about. I actually trust police with a gun less than I trust an average citizen. And I know this goes against the whole gun community mantra of, if you haven't received 800,000 million hours of training from a professional, then you shouldn't handle a gun. But I think guns are easy to handle. And I trust the average person to handle one more so than I do police. Because here's the thing, the police don't exist in, the private individual doesn't exist in a culture like the police do, where they're told they're special, they have authority. If they do something wrong, doesn't matter. As long as they were doing their job, they can get away with it. They're special. Average citizens aren't told that. They're told, be careful with your gun. Don't look for trouble, because if you get in trouble and you use your gun, you're probably going to go bankrupt defending yourself. So you always want to be sure. You want to avoid issues. Whereas the police are, it's us against them, and I can do whatever I want because I got a badge and I can get away with it. There's a lot of YouTubers on YouTube that you can tell are very much used to that mentality. They're police officers, ex-police officers, and when I confront them about something, they can't deal with that because they're used to using their badge and their privilege to get their way, and they can't defend themselves as a person. And they don't know how to handle a situation where they just can't draw their gun. So I don't trust police with guns any more than I trust the average citizen. In fact, I trust the average citizen more because they are actually held responsible for what they do with their guns. So this whole notion that the left has, that police officers they're highly trained with guns and they can be trusted with the guns. How do you reconcile that with your whole notion that, their privilege makes them corrupt? How do you reconcile those two things? And on the right, How do you reconcile that worship with the fact that they're the first people to take your fucking guns? Red flag laws, Katrina, confiscations. It wasn't average citizens marching through the streets, shooting pepper balls and stuff at people standing on their porches back in the summertime. It was police officers acting like jackbooted thugs and telling people to stay in their homes. When they were searching for the bomber from the marathon, I think it was the New York Marathon, when they were looking for the bombers from that, it wasn't everyday citizens that instilled pretty much martial law and told people if they came out of their houses, they'd be shot or arrested or handcuffed. It was the police doing that. So I never have been able to understand how the right reconciles their worship of police officers with the way police officers actually behave every time they get a chance to do it, and how they are not on our side. And it also was funny that the people on the far right, when they were sieging the Capitol, sieging or however you say it, the Capitol on the 6th, seems like they were more than willing to beat the shit out of the police in that circumstance because it served their purpose. But I bet you a lot of those people had the thin blue line bullshit on their stuff right up till that day. So I don't understand it. I don't understand that dichotomy there. I don't understand that rationale, how they reconcile these things in their head. But most of all, to answer the question the person asked me directly, no, I don't trust police with guns more. Because police have been told they're special. Police do not get held accountable. Only in the most dire circumstances and the most specific circumstances with tons of evidence do they even get in any trouble. And generally, it's not anywhere near what we would get into in the same trouble. We are not given the same benefit of the doubt. It can look like we may have made bad judgment. We'll get in trouble. We'll at least go bankrupt defending ourselves. A police officer can be on film deliberately doing something bad, and the most they'll do is get fired and have to move to a police department on the next county, generally. So I don't understand it. And no, I don't trust police officers with guns more because, like I said, they don't temper themselves with responsibility because they know there's no ramifications for their actions. There's no consequences for them to pay in most circumstances. So when it comes to that situation, that environment that we've allowed police officers to create for themselves through their corrupt unions and greasing the palms of politicians and brainwashing citizens into thinking they're some kind of saviors, no, I don't trust them with a gun, period. I am much more skeptical of a police officer with a gun than I am an average citizen open carrying, because I think that police officer has an attitude of, I can do what I want with this gun and nothing's going to happen to me. Whereas the average citizen has been taught to be responsible. So when it comes right down to it, like I said, I don't understand the way people treat police, and I don't understand why people trust them so much, because like I've said, they've shown time and time again they don't deserve that trust. And no, I don't trust them. All right, before we move on here, I want to remind everyone, if you're a Resident Evil fan, especially a fan of Samurai Edge Berettas, and you own a Beretta, I am doing a fundraiser over on TYMPpistolproject.com to raise money for the Pets and Vets program to cover the expenses we incurred after the post office lost all the patches and pins that were going out that I'm having to reorder. So if you're interested in Resident Evil and if you're a Samurai Edge Beretta fan, you might want to go over to TYMPpistolproject.com. If you donate $10 to the Pets and Vets program, for every $10 you donate, you get an entry into winning one of 3 sets of grips that I'm going to be giving away on February 15th. So go on over there. If you're interested, donate, sign up to win. All right, now I want to move on once again to what I think most people out there know is my favorite part of the show. It's gun talk, because during gun talk, we talk about all kinds of different things gun related. We talk about new guns, we talk about how to do things to guns, etc. And tonight I want to do a little how-to. Well, not so much a how-to, because YouTube doesn't let me show you how-to, but I want to answer a question. One of my viewers said, how hard is it to install an RMR? Is it a difficult process to install it and then sight it in? And no, it's not a difficult process. In fact, it's usually very easy. Depending on the gun, it's a little different from gun to gun. But the gun that they asked me that question about after I had showed it was my new Staccato XC. So I thought I'd take some time tonight to install a red dot sight on it and show you how easy it actually is. Now, when it comes to the XC here from Staccato, it's actually extra easy to install the red dot onto the gun because it comes with the Dawson Precision Kit. And it comes with all the parts you need. And not only does it come with all the parts, it comes with a complete breakdown of every part and what you will need. Every part in here is labeled in its own little envelope and tells you exactly what you'll need for if you're installing an RMR or a Holosun or a Delta Point. So this makes it really easy. And what I'm going to need in this case is I'm going to need the gun itself. I'm going to need the sight itself. I'm going to need the package number 3, which is the screws to hold the plate down. I'm going to need package number 2, which is the plate itself. And then I'm going to need package 4, and I'm going to need little envelope A out of that to get the positioning pins for the rear sight. And this is pretty much all I'm going to need. Now, the first thing I need to do is take the rear sight plate off of the actual gun. That's where this little Allen wrench comes in. All right, I don't know if you can see right there, but there's actually a hole in the top of the sight right there. That's where the screw is to remove this rear plate. Sometimes these plates have screws through the top of them. I've even seen it before where you have to take the slide off and come from underneath to take them off. This one just has a screw right here at the back that you take off with the Allen wrench. All right, we just stick it down in there and we make sure we got it completely seated in the screw because we don't want to strip it out. And then we undo it. As we undo it, you can see it coming up off of the gun. And there, it just popped right off. All right, so that's the rear plate here with the sight installed. We're just going to take that, put it in the old packaging, put it back in the box where the gun came from, and save it for later in case we ever want to take the RMR off. All right, next we just need to take the plate out here and get it ready to go on. All right, and since I'm using the RMR, I'm going to be using the plate that actually has the rear sight on it. So this is going to be real easy to put on. Now, before you put the rear plate on, make sure you oil under here and then wipe it dry. You don't want any moisture under there. You want it good and clean. And there we go. Now, in this gun's case, the little front has 2 little notches on it that go into 2 notches in the front of the frame, and then it just sits down into place. Now, you do not screw this one in with the same screw here that you had before because you'll have set screws right here holding it in place. The little screws you're going to need to hold it in place are the ones in packet 3 here, so let's get them out and get them put in there. Now, before I put them in, I'm going to put a little blue Loctite on both of them. Just a little bit. That also comes with the kit. Then once I get a little Loctite on them, I simply put them in the holes to hold the plate down. Now I'm just going to crank them down. You want them snug, but remember that Loctite will hold them snug. You just don't want to over tighten. You don't have to drill these out later when you go to take them back out. Now next we're ready to put the sight on, which means we need these little pins right here. And A is the package for the RMR. And yes, the RMR is a specific type of red dot sight. I know a lot of people out there use it as the generic term for red dot, so do I sometimes. Just like people say Kleenex instead of tissue or Jello instead of gelatin. But actually an RMR is a very specific red dot sight. All right, that right there is a position pin. I'm going to show you where you put it. Now those little positioning pins go in the front holes on the plate because the screws go into the back holes, so you need something in the front holes to hold it in place. And once you have them on there, you just set the sight down into position and then take the screws that came with the RMR and screw the RMR into position. Now, I don't use Loctite on these and I don't crank them down super hard. They just have to hold the sight in position. And you're going to have to remove these when you change the battery on your sight. So you don't want these to be super tight or stripped out or anything. Just has to be hand tightened down, and then every time you take it to the range or whenever you've carried it for a while, just check them and make sure they're still tight. And that's on there very tight. And that's actually all there is to it. Took a couple of minutes, was super easy. And I'm going to have to say, looks pretty good now that we're done. So as you can see, it's very easy. And now that I have it on there, all I have to do is go out, just re-zero the sights, the iron sights, like I normally would to where I want them to be on target, what distance, 20 yards, 25 yards. And then once I have it sighted, just turn the red dot on, put the red dot on the front sight while it's properly aligned with the rear sight, red dot is sighted also. So easy process all the way through. If you feel like it's something you can't handle doing, you're probably wrong, because it's pretty easy. All right, as usual, today I want to end the show with our viewer EDC, our concealed carrier of the day. And today we have David W. And I wanted to show David W. today because he's carrying a very small gun in a very discreet holster. He's carrying a Smith & Wesson M&P Shield 9mm in a Tagua leather holster. Now, this looks like to be one of their little minimalist belt slide type holsters. And I wanted to show David here today because he's showing that everyone doesn't carry a big old gun. Some people have a little gun and they're happy with it. And apparently David is one of those people. As you can see, small gun, small holster, that little belt slide style holster. If he was to drop his shirt over this would simply disappear. Much like the dignity of any full-grown man that carries an M&P shield also disappears, at least their manhood does. But it shows you that you can carry guns that do not really stand out. Like I said, this gun would disappear. It's at about the 4 o'clock, 4:30 position, as I said. Dropping your shirt over, the natural hang of your clothes and natural shape of your body is going to cause this gun to be very hard to notice. And if you ever get yourself in a bad situation, it will still do the job. So that's why I wanted to show it today. So this is David W. with his M&P Shield 9mm in his Tagua leather holster as our viewer EDC of the day. All right, everybody, that's our show for today. Before I go, I want to remind everybody, if you want to be featured as the viewer EDC of the day, just send an email to shootingleftofcenter@gmail.com, and in the subject line, put viewer EDC. That way, when I search for it, I can find the picture. And make sure you include pictures of you actually carrying your gun, not just the gun you carry. And make sure you take them landscape mode, not portrait mode. And here's another crazy thing. Try to get them in focus and try to get yourself in frame. It doesn't do me any good to have a picture of half your gun and all of your ass and all your stuff sitting on your shelf behind you. So just get yourself in frame and get it in focus and take it landscape mode, not portrait mode. And that's all I have to say about that. And also I want to remind everyone, if you want to call me out on something you hear me say in one of the live chats, like what I said about police today. You can also send an email to Shooting Left of Center and in the subject line put Slap the Yank, and we can arrange for you either to do a segment on this show or come into one of my live chats and tell me what I'm wrong about. I look forward to hearing from people who want to tell me how stupid I am. And with that being said, I'll just sign off today as usual by saying, as far as the state of the world today is concerned, it is what it is. It ain't so bad, but it is what it is. But what it will be in the future, if we keep our heads about us and we ignore the profiteers and the fearmongers and all those other people that just want to make us angry and scared so we can be easily manipulated, if we ignore those people and do what we know is right, what things will be in the future for all of us gun owners and non-gun owners, what things will be in the future is better. Man.